Hello, this is Scott Herbst. I am founder and president of Six Flex Training and Consulting, and you are listening to The Flex, a conversation show where we talk with people who are expressing their leadership with the intention of giving you access to expressing yours. I am really excited to have Mia Belsky with me today. Mia is a board certified behavior analyst and the founder of Love, Learn, Soar. They are an early intervention center that also provides services in schools, the community, and home in Boynton Beach, Florida, as well as surrounding areas. I'm going to keep the introduction really short so that Mia can share her insights about that she's gotten from going through the ups and downs of running a business. Mia, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
Thank you. I'm going to start the show as I always do and give you a few minutes really to tell your story from, what got you into business to where you are now.
Well, I was a special educator my entire career, and then I had a son with autism. He was my third child, and I, of course, was in denial like every other parent, even though I was an educator. But when I did get him assessed, it was very obvious at 3 years old that he was on the spectrum. And we did a lot of hard work, a lot of hard work. He's in college now. So we went from being nonverbal to being in college with a 3.9 GPA.
That's
So
amazing.
it is amazing. We worked really hard. And I wanted to help other parents have that experience. I loved what our behavior analysts did with Nathan, and I just wanted to be able to share that with other parents and bring them, the comfort of knowing things are going to get better. You just have to work at it.
Yeah, awesome. And so share a little bit about, start going from having a son with autism to I'm going to learn about behavior analysis to I'm going to run a business and anything else you've,
Yeah,
been on quite a journey. I want people to hear about it.
sure.
Yeah.
So I was working with children. I was a teacher of children with autism spectrum disorder. And I had already decided I wanted to become a behavior analyst. I wanted to have that impact on kids' lives because as behavior analysts, sure, we're teaching skills, but our job is really to write the treatment plan and then to oversee the behavior technicians that are implementing the treatment plan. And I love problem solving. So it felt very natural to me to become a behavior analyst because treatment plans weren't so far away from IEPs, individualized education plans. And I love training and working with the parents and most of all, seeing the kids improve based on the strategies that we're coming up with together and we're working on with those kids. So I fell in love with it once I started to do behavior analysis. I always loved the behavior side of education too. I always felt that if kids aren't in tune or aren't focused, there's not going to be any learning anyway. If they're playing around, there's not going to be any learning anyway. So you have to have that behavior portion under control so that learning can happen. And with our kids with ASD, there's sometimes a lot of behaviors. And so we need to find ways to get that learning in and to teach them that aren't traditional necessarily. And, once I started to see the results of those plans, and once I started to see, wow, this really works like magic, that's all it took for me. And I decided to open up my own agency. I'd started a company with somebody else and decided to break off on my own. And, have had some pitfalls and have had to regroup and pivot a lot. But we're here and we're succeeding every single day. And we're seeing kids gain skills every single day.
Awesome. Will you share, and how long have you been in business?
It's going to be 4 years in October.
Awesome. Yeah, so you've had a chance to journey a little bit.
Yes. Yes.
Do you want to share about one of your pitfalls?
So, I'm from that generation, I guess, that, grit, 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 harder, harder, work harder, harder, harder.
Yeah.
So I had an academic program. I started out with my ABA company, Love Learn Soar, and it became very clear that there were kids who had no schools, and parents approached me to start an academic program, which I did, and it was too much. I was running an ABA program that I really wanted to grow, and that was growing
Yes.
organically. And but I was also running an academic program, and which was equally important, and it was just too much, and it became overwhelming, and the
Yeah.
stress became way too much. And so I decided to give up that academic program, which was a very hard thing to do. It was a not-for-profit organization. It was very hard to do. We'd put in a lot of work into this, but at the end of the day, it's true what they say. If you don't handle your stress, it's going to show up in ways that you don't want it to show up.
Yeah.
For me, that was my staff feeling anxious around me. And I certainly
Mm.
didn't want that. I want them to love coming to work. And I don't want
Yes.
them to be scared of, oh my gosh, what mood is Mia going to be in today? And when you're just constantly working 12, 16 hours a day, there's no way you can escape that kind of stress. There's no way. So the term work-life balance became very important to me. It took me a long time to get there.
Mm.
Um, but now, I'll, no joke, turn my phone off at 6 o'clock or put it in another room. I might look at it, but I won't answer necessarily because
Yeah.
unless it's an emergency, I did have one emergency. One of my kids was sent to the hospital, but unless it's an emergency, nothing needs to be handled that night.
Yeah.
Nothing. Right.
Awesome. There's a lot there that I think people will can learn from. First off, my first question is I know one thing that people struggle with is prioritizing.
Yeah.
And it's just myself included. It's like I experience like if someone brings me an opportunity, even if it is so not right for me, there's just this pull of like, oh, I don't want to miss out. I don't want to
Right.
miss out. Right. In fact, yesterday someone's talking to me about clinical compliance and says, oh, if you hear something, maybe you want to, and there was just this pull, kind of
Yeah.
mechanical pull to be like, oh, should I? And I'm like, no, no, that's not what I do. Um,
Right.
what, so I'm curious how you got to a place where you could see, oh, like I've got to prioritize, and as painful as it might be, or as hard as it might be, I've actually got to like walk away from this.
Right. Yeah. It became just so clear. I mean, emotionally, I was breaking and I had
Mhm.
to do that. I mean, in order for survival, and I needed several months to heal. Right. So I didn't make any decisions for those several months. I gave it a lot of thought. I closed down my entire company in one city, both.
Mhm.
The ABA portion kept going, but I didn't have a building anymore. Right? Because
Yeah.
I couldn't sustain the building with just the one business at that point. It was very
Mhm.
expensive. And so when I finally decided I'd close down everything, except for the ABA company, but that was kind of moving on its own a little bit, I decided to move to a different city and start from scratch again
Mm.
with all new staff, except for my core people. So it's
Mhm.
interesting what you said. The thing that keeps me in the lane I need to be in are my two co-administrators. That's it. I share everything with them. And I think that's the hardest thing. I didn't really before have anybody that I could lean on or talk to. I was the clinical, I was the marketing, right? I oversaw everything, even though I had somebody else doing the billing and the administrative work and the onboarding. But I was doing way too much. So now what I do is I speak with our lead administrator, our executive administrator, and I speak with my clinical director. So I brought two key people in, and
Yeah.
I very much said, we're running this business together. And if I do well, you do well. Um, and they do. And they say to me, stay in your lane. I think you should only do this. Stay in your lane. I think, and they've said it to me very many times. Like, we have a situation where parents said, can you start doing early care? And I looked at my clinical director and she said, we do ABA. We're not a daycare center. And, and, oh, I think this kid is going to be kicked out of school. Should we maybe do an academic program? We do ABA. So stay in your lane. That doesn't mean we can't help them. That doesn't mean we can't find resources for them. And I have, and I share those resources, but we, because I'm like that and I just want to take every opportunity I can, just like you do, it's good to have people around you who can say to you, stop. I'm afraid you're going to get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And that's been huge for me. Huge, huge.
Yeah. Awesome. I also hear, and I know this is something you've spent some time on, focused on in your company, is actually like really, and you just communicated it, was being really connected with your mission.
Yeah.
So two things I'm hearing that I think people could really use, even if you're running a team, is, within a larger organization, is being really clear on like, what is our team here for?
Hmm.
And doing the work to, like you said, stay in your lane. I
Hmm.
think to stay in your lane, you probably got to define your lane,
Correct.
right?
You do.
Um,
Mhm.
and and then having, I guess, getting out of your own head and having people in your own environment who you trust to actually check in with and say, well, one, you've like really empowered people to say, hey, wake up, right?
Right. Yes.
uh but also to ask and say, hey, is this in line with what we
Yes.
said we're about and what we do?
Yes. And I think as a leader, you have to have those people around you. Doesn't necessarily have to be people working in your company, I think, but people who you can trust and bounce things off of and know well. Right. And
Yeah.
right. So I think, I mean, my staff is, you asked me, when we were talking another time, what was one of your fears? A big fear of mine is losing a crucial member of my team.
Yes.
That's a big fear of mine, is I have an outstanding team and I trust them. We also another thing we do here is we leave ego at the door. And I was hiring a new behavior tech the other day, a registered behavior technician, and I said, we don't really have ego here. And and everybody's like, yeah, we don't. Like, we're honest with each other. We say it like it is. My staff can be honest with me. I can be honest with my staff, and everybody helps each other. Yeah.
Oh, wow, there's a lot. There's like three different things I want to pull on here. I'm going to go back to one thing you said, is that you noticed, and I think this is really useful, and you're not the first person who I've heard allude to this or say it outright, that you really get a lot of feedback from the people around you. And that was a big clue that, whoa, something's got to shift here, because I can see that the people around me are anxious.
Yeah. And
And
they told me,
what did they say?
they said, you need to go take a walk. You're really anxious.
Okay, got it. Got it.
And
Uh,
when you're anxious, we feel anxious. More
yeah.
than one of my staff members told me that. But I was happy because they felt comfortable enough saying that to me. And it
Yeah.
brought it to my attention, because I think when you're in the moment of doing
Mhm.
whatever it is that you're doing, you don't
Yeah.
really notice how you appear to other people. So I've been very grateful, to my staff to say, you need to go take a walk. Or why don't you go into the sensory room and have a little break?
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a question you can say no to, because you might not have any idea. But if you do have an idea, I think it would be really useful for people. Do you have any sense of what you do or what you bring forward that creates space where people have the freedom to say to their boss, hey, uh, you need to, like, you got to alter something here. The way you're being isn't working, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to have respect. That's a huge thing. You have to respect your staff. And you have to bring people on that you respect, right? They don't have to be, RBTs don't necessarily have the same education as BCBAs, but I have RBTs that I listen to.
Yeah.
Um, we have a great team. And I think part of being a good BCBA is being a good listener, uh,
Yeah.
right? And I know we both do acceptance and commitment therapy. And so a big part of that is listening and helping to redirect people and helping them to reframe their thoughts and or whatever it is we're doing. And a big part of that is you have to be willing to accept constructive criticism. I ask it of my staff every day because you cannot work with kids the way we do without receiving constructive criticism. It's one of the questions we ask when we're hiring. How are you with constructive criticism? Right? And
Mhm.
sometimes it doesn't sound so nice. So if a BCBA is in a rush with three things, she might just say to you, yeah, we need to do it this way, not this way, and walk away. And you have to be okay with that, or be okay going to her and saying, that was really cold the way you just said that to me. And I don't like that approach. And you have to feel comfortable saying that. So um, that's huge. I also appreciate my staff a lot. So recently, we have a new client that's only 2 years old. And we hired a fantastic RBT who's working with her. And we've seen in such a short amount of time such tremendous gains. And the mom just started raving in a WhatsApp chat about all the progress her child is making and how grateful she is for this RBT. So right away, I sent her a gift card. Coffee's on me tomorrow. Thank you for doing such an awesome job. We all really appreciate it. And she said, "Oh, that's so sweet." I said, "As they say, this is the very least I can do. I'd much rather give her a nice check or something, but this is what we could do right now. I could buy her coffee." And that's really meant a lot to her, that I thought of her. And I wanted to recognize the good job she's doing.
That's huge. People love to see the difference they make.
Yes.
They really, really do. And
Yes.
I think underlining that is really powerful.
Yeah. And always praising, like always looking for the good, not for the bad. I think that's something we do really well. We'll always search to, to reinforce, to give social praise, always between
Yeah.
ourselves and our kids.
Yeah. I think that's a really great point too. I think I've fallen into this trap where as a behavior analyst, because we tend to talk in binaries. There's
Yeah.
positive reinforcement and negative
Yeah.
reinforcement. And um and in thinking that way, it's really easy to think it's this either or thing.
Yeah.
And what I love that you pointed to is that it's actually all there. I shouldn't say actually, but you could look at it like it's all there all at once.
Hmm.
And I could find things that I really love about myself, and I could find things I really don't love about myself.
Hmm.
And you could do that with anyone at any moment.
That's right.
And so there's an intentionality of like, okay, I'm going to find what this person brings to the table
Yeah.
and really strengthen and reinforce that.
Yeah. Right. And a while ago, I had a couple of BCBAs who came to me about a BCBA candidate, a student analyst, and we didn't feel like she was doing enough. Um,
Yeah.
and I was getting very frustrated because, I tried to approach it a few different ways, and I said, I don't know why I'm so upset about it. And one of my BCBs said, it's about added value, that you're not seeing the added value from her. From everybody else in the company, you can see the added value, but you're not able to see it from her. And I said, you're right. That's exactly right. Everybody else brings added value, right?
Hmm.
This person was kind of draining more than giving, which
Yes.
which doesn't work. That doesn't work. There's a book, I can't remember the full name, but on the bus. And so I can't remember the full name now, but that's also a question or a statement I make. I show everybody who's hired our values and our mission, right? And right on our website. And I ask them, are you able to be on our bus? Um, and And they say yes, usually. And they're usually, because we show them this is exactly who we are, and we're not lying about it. So if you can be that person too, you can sit on our bus with us.
I
So
love. I have another question. This is going way back to something you said, but you talked about work-life balance,
yeah,
and I know that's something that people struggle with,
so
and
much.
and it's one of my little pet peeves is that people give advice like, don't answer the phone after 6, don't respond to
Right.
email. But I also know that people will follow that rule, but then be thinking about it and still kind of nagged by, like, so it's one thing to not answer the phone, but it's actually one thing to be present after 6, not thinking about the emails you're missing while
Right.
you're not you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So what insight can you offer there about
You're
actually
right.
like
You're
having that balance be authentic versus just something you're kind of going through the motions on?
So you're right. If I actually have to change environment, which you know is a behavior analytic strategy. So I
Yeah.
actually have to go someplace that's relaxing for me. I
Okay.
have to remove myself from the place where I actually do work. So we live in Florida, so I'll go to the
Mhm.
beach, or I'll go, I know not everybody has that luxury, but finding a place that brings peace. I don't need to talk to a soul if I'm sitting next to water. And I live close
Yes.
enough to the intercoastal that I can walk over and have a seat, and I feel like my mind is just clearing. I listen to a lot more music now also, which is something that I'd given up, and I always loved listening to music. My daughter's a musician and an artist, and music has always been a part of our lives. So I didn't do that. Instead, I'd like sit on the couch and stare at the TV, and I wasn't really watching TV. I was thinking about, and that would happen all weekend. And I'd be on
Yeah.
my phone all weekend. Oh, look, this is a new program, and and I've taught myself that I have to actually physically remove myself and do something else, or put my earbuds in and not just have it in the background when I'm working. Like really truly try to be mindful and be in that moment. And that's all we're doing. And by the way, I start to use that language also with
What do you
friends,
mean?
with our clients. All we're doing right now is eating. That's it. We're not doing
Mm.
anything else. All you're doing right now is driving. I might say to one of my kids, we're not doing anything else. That's all we're,
Yeah.
and that helps a lot. Being mindful is really helpful.
I love that you brought that up. Um, I I noticed that this has been something recently I've taken on as well, where I realized at some point, like, I'm constantly distracting myself.
Yes.
And I think when I'm doing like if I was emptying the dishwasher, it's like I gotta turn on a podcast.
Yeah.
And I realized like that was actually somehow holding me just in this world of like distraction. And when I actually shut that stuff off and would actually just unload the dishwasher, there was this real opportunity to actually just be present with unloading the dishes.
Yeah.
And it got weird. It's like I actually look forward to unloading the dishes now because it's like a moment of like peace and quiet. It's
Right. Right.
yeah, been pretty
Right.
profound for me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Um, we are getting close to out of time. Is there anything else you really want to share that I haven't gotten to ask or I haven't asked you about by way of like a challenge you face, something you want people to know that you think would be really useful to them?
So you asked about what, at one point you had asked me about if there was one trait or one quality, that character trait that, and I was thinking about that, and I said resilience, because it
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot. I was going to say grit, but then I decided not to. But resilience, we have some very difficult parents that are very challenging to work with. And we've got,
Yes.
especially because their kids are very young, right? And so of course they're going to be very concerned and, on top of things. And
Mm-hmm.
it's hard for an RBT or a BCBA to go back to that every day, not just about the parents, but you can have a kid that's hitting you or biting you.
Yes.
and you block as best as you can, but they always get one good bite in a day. You have to maintain that resilience. Okay, I'm going to rest tonight, and I'll be able to get back at it tomorrow. And I think that developing that resilience is really important, and finding ways to maintain that. Otherwise, people just leave when things get hard.
Yep. Do you have any insights about how you've developed resilience? Because you got to be pretty
So,
resilient to manage
yeah,
business for
right.
years on end.
So I think my entire life I've been the word that's been used for me has been tenacious, which doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have the same connotation as resilient. So I've always worked really hard in my life, but I think, like we talked about, turning it off has helped my resilience. Because if
Mm,
I never turn off, which I wasn't, right? If
yeah.
you're working 16-hour days, you get depleted really quickly. And so I think that the resilience can be built by actually doing those things that are going to calm you and take away the stress so that you can bounce up again the next morning.
Awesome. What is your next challenge?
So, well, what I'm personally doing is I'd like to get more education in early childhood development. Um,
Hmm.
I'm very much into early childhood development. I think I always was, but just feel like I want even more information now. Um, and building our early intervention center to be like the place people want to go. And this is the place that people are going to want to go because they're going to want to see their children making so many gains. Yeah.
And then my real question is, so you've got that vision for really expanding and it sounds like making like, correct me anything I say that's not accurate, but like growing the center, but also growing the difference you make,
Correct.
like
Not, and
building excellence while scaling.
but not scaling so far. That's
Yeah.
not scaling so far. I really want a very small center.
Hmm.
Like I do, and I'd be happy with that because unlike many other business people who, want to scale and want to grow, money isn't the driving factor for me. The
Yeah.
success of our kids is the driving factor. And because we've been having a slower, more natural growth, we've been able to give the attention where the attention is needed. And if
Got
we
it.
get too big,
Yeah.
we
So
won't
for
be
you,
able
the
to do that.
focus really is excellence first.
Correct. It
Yeah.
is.
And what are you taking on personally? What do you see as like your next personal growth edge in building your capacity to deliver excellence?
So again, like I said, it's building my education in early childhood development. That's
Yeah.
really um, our clinical director, Tara Natali Bienvenu, is a year away from her PhD. She's already started writing her dissertation. She scared me completely away from a PhD. So I don't know that I'd want to do a PhD, but I'd want some, but definitely more education in that area. Yeah.
Awesome. Uh, I have one more question.
Sure.
How can people reach you?
Well, you can reach me at Mia at love, learn, soar, SOAR
Yeah.
.com. And also our phone number is 561-600-9822. And we also do virtual. So if people need virtual coaching, if there's some parents out there who just say, I need a little support, um, or, they live in an area where there are no ABA services, we also are happy to provide those services.
Awesome. Mia, thank you so much just for a couple things. One, taking the time to share what you've learned with our listeners, but then on behalf of all the people who you make a difference for, who aren't saying it enough, thank you for being in the business you are, making the difference you make. It is
Thank
really
you.
no small thing.
Thank you so much.
All
Thank you.
right, everyone, this it wraps up this episode of The Flex. We will see you back here with our next one.
Thank you.